Hey everybody, so I'll be moving to a two-book format for a bit since it seems like it'll be a little bit easier for me to do on the regular. Today I'll be talking about The Aims of Education by Alfred North Whitehead and the next part of The Fifth Hammer by Daniel Heller-Rosen. So let's get started. So The Aims of Education embodies a great sentiment commonly attributed to Yeats, Socrates, but probably actually from Plutarch, that the purpose of education is not to fill a vessel but to kindle a flame. Writing that the mind is never passive. It is a perpetual activity, delicate, receptive, responsive to stimulus. You cannot postpone its life until you have sharpened it. He then talks about style, which is, in a sense, the final inheritance of being educated in this way. Style in art, style in literature, style in science, style in logic, style in practical execution have fundamentally the same aesthetic qualities, namely attainment and restraint. Leading into this, he asks, have you ever noticed the zigzag molding around a Norman arch? The ancient work is beautiful, the modern work is hideous. The reason is that the modern work is done to exact measure. The ancient work is varied according to the idiosyncrasy of the workman. The love of a subject in itself and for itself, where it is not the sleepy pleasure of pacing a mental quarterdeck, is the love of style manifested in that study. This naturally brings to my mind that Feynman quote, "Study hard what interests you the most in the most undisciplined, irreverent, and original manner possible."
But we now have a story about mass renormalization, blah, blah, blah.
I'll leave it at that for now, having mainly left the text to speak for itself. So continuing to the Fifth Hammer. So this time I'll be looking at Chapter 2 of Measured Multitude. Let me see how well I do with this one. Heller-Rosen mentions that according to classical sources, Pythagoras had lived in the 6th century BC, and by the 3rd century AD, not only were harmonics and arithmetic seen as essentially Pythagorean doctrines, but the doctrines had become canonical, and that Iamblichus of Chalcis in Book 3 of his Summa Pythagorica presents music as a discipline no less mathematical than arithmetic and geometry. This is noteworthy as Heller-Rosen explores Boethius again, and that he divides these mathematical essences into two categories, magnitude and multitude. The first is continuous, the second disjointed or discrete, a distinction which we of course inherit in our mathematics. Magnitudes in themselves, we learn, are the proper objects of geometry. Magnitudes in relation to others, by contrast, belong to astronomy, which considers the continuous spherical beings that pass through the heavens. Multitudes contemplated in themselves are the ideal object of arithmetic. Multitudes, finally, conceived with respect to each other, belong to the domain of study that is music. The implication of this fact are far-reaching and less evident than it might first appear, if only on account of that deceptively familiar word, arithmetic. For the moderns, the term designates an art of computation, a technique by which one employs numeric figures to calculate an exact measure. The ancients had an essentially different understanding of the word. Namely, what we now think of as arithmetic would have been then called logistics, which was the name given to arts of measuring and calculating quantities of sensible things by means of numbers. Arithmetic was a knowledge of a different order. It concerned not the correct use of numbers, but the true knowledge of their nature, which, given this discussion, we can infer to be musical. Very interesting. All right, that's it then.